Trump, man. Trump had a good year, man. Trump survived an assassination attempt.
Chris Rock did not waste time in seizing the cultural moment when Donald Trump began his second term after narrowly defeating Kamala Harris. Rock, who has always been known for his fearless humor and cutting observations about politics, society, and race, found himself standing on one of the largest platforms of his career. The world was watching, not only because Trump had returned to the White House after a bitterly divisive campaign, but also because Rock, in his unique style, was prepared to say the things others avoided. When he turned his comedic crosshairs toward Trump's chaotic first few months back in power, the results were explosive. Audiences gasped, laughed, and debated his words, knowing full well that this was more than just comedy. It was a cultural reckoning. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. Rock's takedown began with the blunt acknowledgement of how surreal it was that Trump had clawed his way back to victory. Many Americans had believed his first term would end his political career forever, especially after the controversies, impeachments, and widespread unrest that marked it. But Trump, master of resilience and relentless self-promotion, found a way to outmaneuver Harris in a campaign riddled with fear-mongering, populist appeals, and relentless attacks. For Rock, this return was not just a political story. It was evidence of something far more troubling in American culture, something he believed needed to be held under the spotlight. By using his comedy to target Trump's early failures and the swirl of rumors about his personal life, Rock turned entertainment into critique and critique into a national talking point. From the beginning, Rock made it clear that Trump's second presidency was off to an even worse start than the first. The promises of a revived America and restored greatness had collapsed under the weight of infighting, resignations, and policy blunders. Agencies were in disarray, the international community was unsettled, and the American people were already exhausted. Rock painted this portrait with a comedic brush, but the underlying image was grim. He mocked the administration's inability to maintain basic order, calling out the chaos that seemed to spill out of every press briefing and policy announcement. His routine felt less like stand-up and more like a mirror being held up to a disoriented nation, forcing people to recognize the absurdity of their reality. The most incendiary part of Rock's performance, however, came when he shifted to Trump's personal life. Reports and rumors had begun circulating of multiple alleged affairs during Trump's first months back in office. While such claims had always haunted Trump, this new wave suggested he had resumed his old patterns even after regaining the presidency. Rock knew the cultural weight of this revelation. To him, it was not only about Trump's alleged disloyalty to Melania, but also about what it represented in the broader sense of presidential integrity. By laying bare the contradiction between Trump's public image as a family man and the whispers of clandestine affairs, Rock struck a nerve that resonated beyond partisan politics. What made Rock's attack so powerful was the way he framed these accusations within the broader dysfunction of the Trump presidency. It wasn't merely about one man's indiscretions. It was about the erosion of trust, morality, and responsibility at the highest level of leadership. Rock turned the personal into the political, suggesting that a president who could not be loyal to his own family could hardly be loyal to a nation. His audience responded with a mix of shock and recognition, laughing not only at the absurdity of the allegations, but also at the tragic symbolism they carried. As Rock spoke, his words cut through the media noise in a way pundits and analysts rarely could. While political commentators dissected policy failures and poll numbers, Rock translated the chaos into language ordinary people understood, through humor. He exaggerated Trump's missteps, painted grotesque caricatures of his behavior, and yet beneath the exaggeration was an unmistakable truth. Comedy gave Rock permission to say what many people were already thinking, but were too exhausted or fearful to articulate. This is what turned his performance into a cultural moment, the rare ability to blend entertainment with reality in a way that transcended politics. For those in attendance and for the millions who watched clips online afterward, Rock's routine felt like both catharsis and indictment. Catharsis because laughter provided a temporary release from the anxiety of living under another Trump administration. Indictment because Rock did not soften the blows. He accused Trump of incompetence, recklessness, and hypocrisy, laying out a devastating critique disguised as comedy. It was a reminder of how comedians, more than politicians, can often shape the public consciousness during moments of crisis. The reaction to Rock's words reverberated across the political and cultural landscape. Trump's supporters were furious, claiming it was nothing more than Hollywood elitism attacking the president they had fought so hard to re-elect. Yet even among conservatives, there were whispers of unease, especially about the rumors of affairs. For critics of Trump, Rock's performance confirmed what they already believed, that Trump's second term was shaping up to be a disaster. For independents and casual observers, the spectacle was unavoidable. Rock had made Trump's failures impossible to ignore by cloaking them in humor sharp enough to wound. There was also something deeply symbolic in the choice of messenger. Chris Rock is not a politician, not a journalist, not a policy expert. He is an entertainer. And yet in this moment, his words carried more weight than official analyses. That dynamic underscored how fractured and surreal the American political landscape had become. A comedian was speaking truth to power in ways traditional institutions seemed incapable of doing. The fact that people turned to Rock for clarity showed just how desperate the nation was for voices willing to call things as they were. Rock's critique also carried racial and cultural undertones that amplified its impact. As a black comedian who has often dissected America's contradictions on race, class, and power, Rock spoke with the authority of someone who understood how Trump's presidency affected marginalized communities. By calling out Trump's hypocrisy and failures, Rock was also standing up for those who had been silenced, ignored, or vilified during both campaigns and presidencies. This lent a moral force to his words that went beyond entertainment. It was the voice of resistance echoing through comedy. The wider implications of Rock's performance stretched beyond Trump himself. It reignited the debate about the role of comedy in political life. Some argued that comedians like Rock wield too much influence, turning serious issues into punchlines. Others countered that comedy has always been a tool of dissent, a way to challenge power through ridicule and satire. In this case, Rock's jokes did more than entertain. They crystallized the unease many Americans felt but struggled to express. That power, the power to distill chaos into clarity, made his words unforgettable. At the heart of Rock's destruction of Trump was the reminder that leadership is about more than winning elections. Trump may have beaten Kamala Harris, but Rock forced the public to ask what he was actually delivering in office. Were his policies coherent? Were his priorities in line with the needs of ordinary people? Was his personal conduct undermining the dignity of the presidency? By raising these questions through humor, Rock illuminated the failures of Trump's second term in a way that was both devastating and unforgettable. The scandal of alleged affairs added fuel to the fire. Americans have long had a complicated relationship with the personal lives of their presidents. For some, such matters are irrelevant compared to policy. For others, they are a reflection of character and trustworthiness. Rock tapped into the latter perspective, painting the image of a man unable to control his impulses, even while entrusted with the highest office in the land. By doing so, he turned private scandal into public concern, reinforcing the sense that Trump's presidency was a theater of dysfunction. This episode revealed much about the intersection of politics, media, and entertainment in the 21st century. Trump himself had blurred those lines long before Rock took the stage, using his celebrity background to dominate politics in unprecedented ways. Now, a comedian was flipping that script, using the tools of entertainment to challenge political power. It was a strange symmetry. Trump, the reality TV star turned president, facing off against Rock, the stand-up comedian turned cultural critic. Both men understood the power of performance, but in this moment, Rock's performance proved stronger. What audiences witnessed was more than just a comedy show. It was a reminder of how fragile democracy can feel when leaders appear incapable of governing effectively. Rock did not offer solutions, nor did he pretend to. Instead, he illuminated the dysfunction through satire, trusting that laughter could inspire awareness and perhaps accountability. His performance left an indelible mark on the early days of Trump's second presidency, shaping the narrative of those months in a way policy papers and news articles never could. By the time Rock left the stage, the cultural landscape had shifted. Trump was still in power, still making decisions, still commanding the apparatus of the presidency. But in the eyes of millions, his image had been cracked. The combination of incompetence, chaos, and scandal had been distilled into unforgettable humor. And that humor lingered in conversations, in memes, in headlines. Chris Rock had destroyed Trump not by policy debate, not by investigative journalism, but by exposing the absurdity of his presidency through comedy. The fallout from Chris Rock's performance did not stop once the laughter subsided. What gave the moment its extraordinary power was the way it rippled into spaces far beyond comedy clubs and entertainment circles. Television networks replayed clips of the takedown repeatedly, dissecting not just the jokes, but the undertones. Political commentators found themselves analyzing comedy as if it were a State of the Union address, a testament to how Rock's words cut through the noise of partisan talking points. For weeks, late-night shows, podcasts, and radio programs returned to his routine as a cultural benchmark, a signal that Trump's second presidency was already being framed by ridicule rather than triumph. The media fascination highlighted a deeper truth about the fragility of Trump's public image. He had built his career on dominating the media cycle, turning even his controversies into fuel for attention. Yet Rock's destruction was different because it wasn't fueled by scandal alone. It was delivered with wit, timing, and cultural resonance. Rock didn't simply report on Trump's failures or scandals, he made them impossible to ignore by wrapping them in unforgettable comedy. When a joke becomes shorthand for political dysfunction, it is far more damaging than a headline, because it seeps into the collective consciousness. Rock had turned Trump into a punchline, and for a man who valued dominance above all else, this was a uniquely corrosive attack. What also stood out was the generational element of Rock's performance. Younger audiences, many of whom had grown disillusioned with politics after years of chaos and division, found in his words a language that resonated. They didn't tune into policy debates or lengthy analysis, but they understood satire, memes, and comedy clips. Rock's takedowns spread across social platforms with lightning speed, becoming not just a moment of entertainment, but a cultural shorthand for the state of the presidency. For those too young to remember the seriousness of past administrations, Rock's portrayal of Trump defined the way they saw their leader: chaotic, untrustworthy, and absurd. The routine also reignited debates about the responsibility of comedians in times of political crisis. Some argued that Rock's words, while entertaining, had a serious edge that demanded to be taken as social commentary. Others worried that treating comedy as political critique blurred the lines between entertainment and civic responsibility. Yet what made this performance resonate was precisely its refusal to conform to boundaries. Rock refused to sanitize his words for fear of offending, and in doing so, he reminded audiences that comedy can function as a form of truth-telling when traditional avenues falter. His fearlessness became part of the narrative itself, reinforcing the idea that cultural figures sometimes carry the burden of saying what institutions cannot. Beyond America, the international reaction underscored the global implications of Rock's destruction of Trump. News outlets from Europe to Asia picked up the story, framing Rock's words as part of the world's perception of Trump's chaotic leadership. In capitals across the globe, leaders and citizens alike had grown weary of the unpredictability that came with Trump's presidency. Rock's blunt portrayal gave voice to frustrations that transcended national borders, transforming what might have been an American moment into an international conversation. The fact that a comedian could articulate these grievances more effectively than diplomats or journalists spoke volumes about the fractured state of global politics in the Trump era. Most significantly, Rock's takedown forced Americans to reckon with the emotional cost of their political reality. For many, living through Trump's second term felt like reliving a nightmare they thought they had escaped. Rock tapped into that sense of exhaustion and disbelief, using humor to validate the public's frustration. His accusations about Trump's alleged affairs amplified the disillusionment, reminding people that the scandals were not abstract but tied to a man who had once again been given the responsibility of leadership. The laughter that erupted during Rock's set carried within it an acknowledgement of collective fatigue, the sense that Americans were trapped in a cycle of dysfunction they could neither escape nor fully process. What lingered after Rock's performance was the awareness that comedy could shift political perception more swiftly than official opposition. In a nation where traditional debate often failed to cut through polarization, laughter became a weapon sharper than rhetoric. The sheer immediacy of Rock's delivery allowed his audience to confront the absurdity of governance, without drowning in jargon or analysis. It reminded people that sometimes the truest critiques come not from podiums or reports, but from stages lit for humor. In that way, Rock's dismantling of Trump became both a cultural event and a striking act of civic engagement. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Chris Rock calling out Trump after re-election? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.